Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month. First, we'll read in Spanish. Alondra Gomez Lucia, and if I messed up your name, please correct me. We'll read in Spanish.
My name's Alondra Gomez Licea. My address is 1900 North Brook Lane Street. I'm apartment E2. So I'll start. Por cuanto lo que comenzó en 1968 como la Semana de la Herencia Hispana durante el gobierno del presidente Lyndon Johnson y que el presidente Ronald Reagan amplió para que abarque un periodo de 30 días a partir del 15 de septiembre de cada año, Estados Unidos celebra todos los años el mes de la herencia hispana y latina. Por cuanto en el mes de la herencia hispana se celebran las historias, culturas y contribuciones hispanas y latinas de aquellos cuyos antepasados eran indígenas de América del Norte, así como de España, México, el Caribe, América Central y del Sur y de la nación. Por cuanto la ciudad de Ellensburg valora y honra la herencia cultural rica y las contribuciones significativas de los americanos del origen hispano y latino a nuestra comunidad y nación. Por cuanto reconocemos el crecimiento continuo de las organizaciones e individuos de la comunidad hispana y latina y sus contribuciones al entramado de nuestra comunidad. Por cuanto al ayuntamiento se compromete a la inclusión continua de las comunidades hispanas y latinas a medida que construimos nuestra infraestructura, nuestras asociaciones y nuestra estructura de gobierno para el futuro. Ahora, por lo tanto, la ciudad de Ellensburg insta por la presente a todos los segmentos de nuestra comunidad para incluir a los residentes hispanos y latinos en sus eventos, estructuras organizativas y esfuerzos individuales a medida que nos esforzamos por fortalecer la resiliencia de la comunidad para nuestro futuro. Firmado el 16 de septiembre de 2024.
Thank you very much. And that in English will be read by Hannah Fredeen.
Yes, Hannah Fredeen, 1201 East Helena Avenue,
We
apartment
don't need
18.
your addresses.
Don't need
That's-
that?
Yeah,
Perfect, all right, thank
you're
you.
good.
City of Ellensburg Proclamation, Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month 2024, Pioneers of Change, Shaping the Future Together. Whereas what began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson and expanded by President Ronald Reagan to cover a 30-day period starting September 15th of each year, the United States annually observes Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month celebrates the Hispanic and Latinx histories, cultures, and contributions of those whose ancestors were indigenous to North America, as well as Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America and nation. And whereas the city of Ellensburg values and honors the rich cultural heritage and significant contributions of Hispanic Latinx Americans to our community and nation. And whereas we acknowledge the continued growth of the Hispanic Latinx community organizations and individuals and the contributions to the fabric of our community. And whereas the City Council commits to the continued inclusion of the Hispanic Latinx communities as we build our infrastructure, our partnerships, and our governing structure for the future. Now, therefore, the City of Ellensburg hereby encourages all segments of our community to include Hispanic Latinx residents in their events, organizational structures, and individual endeavors as we strive to strengthen the community resilience for our future. 16th of September.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no awards or recognitions. So we'll move to approval of the agenda, and the clerk has requested that we add the banner request that is at our desk. Because it starts September 30th before our next meeting.
I'll move for the approval of the agenda with the amendment of the banner request form.
And to clarify, that's added to the consent agenda.
Consent, sorry.
That was my fault.
I'll second that. Approval of the agenda.
Motion and second to add the banner request to the consent agenda. I guess it would be item 5H.
Of each.
Um, So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? That motion carries. So
So
that was approval of the agenda with the amendment. So consent is before you.
move for approval of the consent agenda as amended. Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We jump to business requiring public hearings, item 8A. This is a closed
May-
record.
Oh,
You wanted item 7?
Seven.
Citizen comment. Didn't see anything. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to add comments under citizen comment, things that are not on the agenda that the city can do something about? Seeing no one, is there anyone online who, okay, there are none. Okay. That's why I skipped ahead because I knew.
Yes. We got this.
Thanks. Okay, now, item 8A. This is a closed record hearing to consider the adoption of Resolution 2024-26, approving the Pierce preliminary plat. This is a limited public testimony. And I have a script because we got to do this legally. The purpose of this closed record quasi-judicial hearing is for the city council to consider the pertinent facts, applicable law, and to make a final decision on whether to adopt Resolution 2024-26 approving preliminary plat application for the Pierce subdivision, application P23-115, submitted by Puya and Pesman Ruhani, excuse me, and P&P Homes LLC property owners. The closed record hearing to consider the application for preliminary plat approval of the Pierce subdivision is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. This is a closed record hearing. There has already been an open record hearing before the hearings examiner where evidence was submitted and testimony received. Under state law, there can only be one open record public hearing allowed in this proceeding. This closed record hearing means the council bases its decision only on the record developed at the public hearing previously held before the hearings examiner. Only city staff, the applicant's agents, property owners, or others who already participated in the open record hearing on this matter through oral testimony or written comments received by the hearings examiner can participate in this closed record hearing, which would also include Matt Willard, Steve Willard, and Josh Seacrest. No new testimony or introduction of new materials or evidence is allowed. Comments or arguments must address only the already established during the previous open record hearing before the hearings examiner and must be directed to the issue of whether the hearings examiner recommendation should or should not be adopted. If anyone present presents comments that are not based on facts in the record, anyone may make an objection. If an objection is made, the person speaking will stop until the issue of the objection is resolved. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize the requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9. If you are connected by telephone, and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you are invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. The city council seeks to conduct this hearing in a manner that is fair and unbiased in both appearance and fact. Therefore, I would ask the council members the following questions. Does any member of the council have an interest in this property or issue?
No.
No.
Neither do I. Will any member of the council obtain any financial benefit or suffer a financial loss as a result of the outcome of this hearing?
No.
No.
I also say no. Does any council member believe he or she cannot hear and consider this matter in a fair and objective manner?
No.
I'm also no. Has any council member engaged in communications with opponents or proponents regarding the issue outside of the public hearing process? If so, that member must place on the record the substance of the communication so that other interested parties may have the right at this hearing to rebut the substance of the communication.
No.
No. Is any council member employed by a party which has a direct or indirect interest in any property, the value of which will be affected by a decision in this matter?
No.
Will any council member be employed by a party for which the potential employment may be a result of the decision in this matter?
No.
Is any council member a member of or involved in such associations or organizations, whether formal or informal, which takes a position on this application?
No.
Nor am I. Is there anyone present at this time who objects to my participation or any council member's participation in these proceedings on appearance of fairness grounds? Seeing no one. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Yes, there is. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, good evening, council members. My name is Jeremy Johnston with Community Development Department. As you mentioned before you this evening is the Pierce preliminary plat, file number P 23-115. The applicant is proposing 44 residential lots on 2 parcels combining to be approximately 18.17 acres. The project location is on the east side of North Airport Road, north of Countryside Avenue and south of Falcon Road. The property is in the residential suburban zone within the airport overlay. The zone generally allows 6 dwelling units per acre. Because it is in the airport overlay zone, this is reduced to three dwelling units per acre. As mentioned, the applicant is proposing 44 residential units, which calculates out to about 2.5 dwelling units per acre, which is underneath 3 dwelling unit per acre maximum. A critical area report was submitted as part of the SEPA and critical area review. Staff reviewed this critical area report, discovering that there was a stream and an associated wetland, and staff have included recommended conditions to ensure these areas remain protected. So hopefully you guys can see this. The preliminary plat application that we received actually has this separated into parts. So I put this together so you could get the context of what the whole preliminary plat looks like.
Thank you.
So that's why you see it kind of matched up funny on the top and the bottom there. But this is the 44 lots that are being proposed. Primary access is off of North Airport Road, as you can see to the east, with a secondary extension of Beach Road. Beach Road will run through, follow my cursor there. This is going to be Beach Road here. It will run through an adjacent parcel connecting Beach Road just to the north, and including here in a cul-de-sac. Road frontage improvements and non-motorized planned trail access will be required as per Public Works standards. There is a non-motorized planned trail access map that the city has created that will run basically along the northern property line of this parcel. We have, Public Works did add in one of their memos, added a condition, requiring that they work with the Parks Department to maintain this easement or to establish the easement formally, before any final plat is approved. And they will work out the specific location and the width of that. So this has been conditioned to deal with that issue. The preliminary plat was processed concurrently with a SEPA application, consistent with the type 4 permit process, prescribed in Ellensburg City Code 15.210. Community Development issued a mitigated determination of non-significance for the SEPA on May 16th, 2024. And additionally, a block length departure was granted for this project on July 2nd, 2024. The maximum block length is listed at 660 feet. It was under this departure, it was increased to 850 feet due to specific site conditions and restrictions associated with the wetland and critical area buffers, as well as the irrigation canal. On August 2nd, the hearing examiner held an open record public hearing, as you mentioned at the beginning of this. And on August 13th, the hearing examiner issued a recommendation to City Council to approve the application with 13 conditions. All of the comments associated with this application have been provided in your review materials. Following the issuance of the hearing examiner's recommendation, and after some discussion with the city attorney, staff removed condition number 13 that was in the hearing examiner's recommendation, as it was unclear in its scope. This condition basically just spoke to the fact that if the applicant makes changes to the proposal, the SEPA will have to be revisited. This condition was already in the SEPA determination, so it really shouldn't have applied to the preliminary plat. So that was removed. And staff is recommending the addition of 2 conditions to the hearing examiner's recommendation. So as condition 13 was removed, this one would be replaced specifically with a condition noting that the lots cannot be further subdivided due to them being within the airport overlay zone. This is a note in our airport overlay zone section, Ellensburg City Code 15.350.04, which establishes a threshold for lot sizes that if you're being subdivided below that threshold, which is somewhere in the 14,000 square foot range, you cannot further subdivide those lots. So it's just a standard code section that we wanted to make sure that the applicant was aware of. And then staff are also recommending the addition of condition 14, stating that no certificates of occupancy shall be issued prior to completion of all required public improvements. So staff is recommending adoption of resolution 2024-26, approving the Pierce preliminary plat as conditioned. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
We'll get back to you on that. Is the applicant's agent or applicant present, and does he or she have comments or arguments they would like to make at this time? No comments? Okay. So do any of the people who testified before, that would be Mr. Willard or Mr. Sechrist. I don't see in the audience. Is anyone online? No. Okay. Okay. Does the staff have anything to add?
No, do not.
Does the applicant have anything to add? Thanks. Council, do you have any questions of the staff or the applicant?
I have a query. If it's inappropriate, let me know. I was just curious about, there's a plan to extend the Palouse Cascades Trail along the northern part of the city. Will that happen in relationship to this plat?
That would be south of where this is being proposed. I could bring up, see if I have a map on here that would be.
Last image you had, could you kind of show it?
Yeah, let me go.
My understanding is it's on the north boundary of this property.
So
Yeah, it's on the, it's right on the edge of the city boundary. Let me bring a map back up. Maybe that would be helpful here.
It's on the south
South-
boundary
south
of the
of the
airport
irrigation
property.
canal.
Correct.
or adjacent.
Yeah, so if we bring here, you can see the airport's just north of here. So you have Bender Road up here and yeah, airport running here. So Palouse Cascade Trail is just sort of south of this, running at roughly a 45-degree angle.
No, I'm pretty sure, Jeremy, it is on,
That's through the airport.
it is on the north edge of the property, south edge of the airport.
The wrong thing.
And actually, it's not the Cloose Cascades Trail, it's the,
John Wayne Trail Reconnect.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure, okay.
around, that goes around the city, right?
That's what's identified in the non-motorized transportation plan. And
Okay.
I'm-
And I have that map here too, if that.
Jeremy, do you just want to
It's okay.
reaffirm what you talked about with the easement that's provided?
Yeah, so
Works.
and maybe to provide some context here, let me go ahead and just share that transportation map. I think this is going to help us a little bit of context. Have it open a second. Have it open? Okay, so this is the non-motorized transportation plan map. As you can see, over here, if you can follow my cursor, this is the general proximity of the proposal here just south of the airport. The proposed going to be an extension here to Alder Street, but specifically the northern boundary of this project is, you can see the pink line running through there, the dotted line, that is, let me get the terminology right here. It is a proposed multi-use off-street trail. So this is part of the non-motorized transportation plan. So this is why there was a condition placed, one actually in the approval points to the Public Works memo that that requires the applicant to work with the Parks and Recreation Department to establish this easement before a final plat application will be approved. And the specific location of that, it's a little bit malleable in the width of that will have to be something worked out with the Parks and Recreation Director as well as the applicant. But we will not process a final plat that does not have that easement on it.
Thank you.
Apparently I wasn't sharing that. I thought it was. My apologies. So yeah, this is the general area.
I'm sorry, did we confirm that the proposed route runs along the northern boundary of the parcel?
It does. It runs along the northern boundary.
On the parcel side or the airport side?
I believe it's on the parcel side. That was the way it was described to me.
So an easement of some,
It will require an easement
Yeah.
in order to maintain that trail possibility.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
thank you.
Are there any further questions? Before closing,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I wasn't going to ask this, but my curiosity's gotten the better of me. So the Beach Road agreement, the connection, Beach Road connection. So looking at Beach Road, the part that I'm familiar with is up on the airport.
Correct.
So they're all named after airplanes. There's no plan to connect that north-south between the airport, or is that the agreement to run it from Falcon down?
The agreement is to run it from Falcon Road through the county property there and reconnecting to where it's being proposed in the preliminary plat map. So it'll run north to south. And it'll either go south to the cul-de-sac where Beach Road will end, or it will go west and follow onto Airport Road.
And does that particular connection show up anywhere in our roads and street planning, or is that a planned improvement?
It is a plan improvement, is my understanding.
Okay.
I don't have that map on me.
That's okay. I was just trying to get some, so the purpose of the connection is to improve access to the airport or improve access to the plat?
Well, the plat, because of the number of lots, is my understanding, it's going to require at least 2 access points. So Airport Road alone would not have been sufficient in order to service the area.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, I see that.
Any further questions? Before closing the public hearing, I wish to advise everyone present that the council reserves the right to reopen this hearing for additional questions or take additional comments later tonight or at a continued hearing if needed. The public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter. Do we have a motion?
Motion to move to adopt resolution 2024-26, approving the Pierce preliminary plat and incorporating the hearing examiner's revised August 27th, 2024 recommended findings of fact, conclusion of law, decision, conditions of approval, removing condition 13 and adding 2 conditions as recommended by staff.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt resolution 2024-26, approving the preliminary plat, incorporating the hearing examiner's recommendations and removing condition number 13 and adding 2 additional conditions recommended by staff. Is there discussion on the matter? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
2 vote aye, opposed. That motion carries. Thank you. Okay. So we have a second legislative public hearing to consider first reading of ordinance 4944 to repeal ordinance 3895 and dissolving the Ellensburg Business Development Authority. The purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider first reading of ordinance 4944, which would repeal ordinance 3895 and result in the dissolution of the Ellensburg Business Development Authority, also known as Centrifuge. The public hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected by telephone, and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you're invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Yes, there is, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Heidi Barron, Sternaway City Manager. I'm going to provide an overview. This is a fairly complex issue, and that what you're seeing tonight is actually several years worth of work, really some concentrated work over almost the last year. To look at how to better shape our community for economic development and set ourselves up for future success. We don't go through the process of dissolving a 30-year-old business development authority every single day. And so there's a lot of learning and there are a lot of steps in this process. And so this is just the first step in an entire transition. Let's see here. So I'm just going to start with a little history. In 2023, the City Council adopted the Economic Development Strategic Plan. This was a county-wide effort. Ellensburg participated in the investment and in the process of developing this plan, which actually started in 2021 with some really broad stakeholder engagement. One of the things that we learned is we have to start, these are the 5 goals of our Economic Development Plan, and we have to start with collaboration. Looking at our future, we have a number of wonderful actions and goals, but the number one underlying piece was to make sure we're working together in a small community, a small rural community. It's important to really capitalize on all of our assets, make sure we have very clear roles and responsibilities, that there's accountability for those actions and alignment to move forward. And over the last year, we've been having some challenges with those, that clarity of roles and responsibilities, especially with our county, our city, our Central Washington University has really stepped up into the realm, and then our economic development organizations, 2 of which are the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce and Ellensburg Business Development Authority. Over the past year, since early 2023, the EBDA, again, I'll talk about the Ellensburg Business Development Authority. It's doing business as Centrifuge. It is a city entity essentially created by the city, and it's really an arm of economic development. Again, that was created almost 30 years ago. And what as we were looking at implementing the economic development plan, the Centrifuge board was very clear that they wanted to work outside just the city, with the city constraints essentially, which is within the boundaries of the city and also the urban growth area. We also knew from our planning efforts that we needed more capacity to work countywide, and we needed to really work better together. If Centrifuge Board actually had reached out and hired a contractor to evaluate different organizational structures. And during one of our economic development implementation workshops, the board expressed interest in having a conversation about being something different than the Ellensburg Business Development Authority and wanting to have that conversation. So I'm just going to back up and talk a little bit about the Public Development Authority, and then we'll get to the sort of the rest of the history with us. So public development authorities are really authorized by state law. It's RCW 3521, and it really provides parameters about cities creating essentially a public entity. It's another quasi-municipal agency that the city actually retains responsibility for. Oftentimes, those development authorities are very site-based. And so in our community, we've had a business development authority that actually works sort of beyond what is very traditional, even within state law for a public development authority. Cities, again, the city created through the Ordinance 3895 in 1993, this entity. It's codified in our city code in chapter 1.62, and it really creates the framework by which the organization operates. And part of that is the city retains responsibility for the operation of the Business Development Authority. It's a separate entity, but we also are accountable for the results and the activities of the Business Development Authority. So over the years, when the bylaws or charter have changed, that's always come back to the city council. One of the rules under state law is that business development authorities operate under the physical boundaries of the entity. In 2013, the city and county actually signed an interlocal agreement to have Centrifuge, or EBDA at that time, work within the urban growth area as well. So those are a bit of the constraints that run along with that public development authority structure. So again, the EBDA is about 30 years old. Over the years, there have been a number of changes. You'll see in public records a number of names. And so the Phoenix Development Group, again, has been known as the Business Development Authority. And then most recently, I believe in 2018, 2019, rebranded as Centrifuge. And so those have been doing business names. We've also seen a number of administrative changes over the years. The entity had a volunteer board. They've had various iterations of staffing for that board over the years. At one point, the board actually merged with the chamber that provided administrative support and oversight for the board in 2017, 18, 19, somewhere there, 2017, I believe. The EBDA moved from the chamber back into the city. We actually had city staff that were staffing the board to help support the work of the volunteer board. And in 2020, there was an interlocal agreement to provide administrative support. So the board actually hired its own staff. And we've been working with the second iteration of that interlocal agreement under the city and with Centrifuge to provide administrative support. Over the years, again, we've had a number of assets of ownership the EBDA provided. We had the business incubator on Enterprise Way that was an asset of the EBDA for many, many years. In 2021, that was surplused and sold. It actually was under the city umbrella, so that money went back into the city account, and we reserved that for economic development purposes. And then in 1999, the entity actually worked with the city and county to get a CURB loan, and that's Community Economic Revitalization Board. That's a state board that provided a loan to actually build an airport campus. And so this is land that's leased from the airport, so from the county. And they built one building. I think there was a vision for having a number of buildings, which didn't quite materialize. So the lease, the site lease has actually gone down over the years. So right now the lease is about $7,000 a year. There are 4 tenants in that building. The building is paid off, and I believe the date was 2019, not 2018, and actually is under ownership of the EBDA. And so that one major asset is really the real property owned by the EBDA. And the current funding, again, the city provides or has provided over the years, at $60,000 over the last few years for economic development services that goes to help administrative support, to be grant matches, et cetera. The county has a source of funding. It's called we call it on shorthand, the .09 funds. It's really the the rural sales tax credit, and it's 0.9% essentially of a sales tax credit that comes back to rural counties for economic development purposes. And so some of that money is actually received by the EBDA for economic development activities and purposes. And then the building at the airport provides lease revenue on an annual basis. And that lease revenue is anywhere, I think, rated in the $81,000 to $84,000 in 2024. So some of the challenges operating with a public development structure are really, the EBDA is required to follow all public bidding requirements. And so anytime you do a public works project or you're doing maintenance on facilities, you do prevailing wage and you have to follow, again, the bidding process. Non-disclosure is also kind of challenging and can be kind of contradictory for economic development practitioners. Sometimes there are companies that want to talk about privately. All of the records and communications for the EBDA are really subject to the same public records laws and disclosure as well. So that can be challenging for general operations. And then we've had overlapping business supports. When Centrifuge rebranded, their mission really was to start, grow, and prosper businesses. And so they were focused on sort of business attraction and business expansion. And the chamber had similar, they were focused more on business retention and expansion, although there are a lot of overlaps. And so some of the challenges over the years have been really finding very clear lanes. And we've had some duplication, and so the goal was to look at better alignment and working better together. And then again, one of the limitations of the PDA, Public Development Authority structure, is that it does follow the structure of the community jurisdictional lines. So given some of the challenges we were having, and given that everyone went into this wanting to make sure that we have a really great organizations and structure set up to serve our community and really implement our plan. We actually worked together to bring together a task force on economic development. And then you'll see a number of the folks that participated in the room tonight. We had 2 representatives. We wanted to make sure we had an even table of kind of the primary players in the economic development sphere in Kittitas County. So we had 2 city members. It was Mayor Rich Elliott and myself participated from the very beginning. Commissioner Wright, who's here tonight, and Brian Elliott, our auditor, participated on the county's behalf. Central Washington University had our VP of University Relations, Andrew Morse, and Rob Ogburn, who's the new director of BC, yes, Business and Community Services. So, and then we also had Amy McGuffin from the chamber, and we had Charlie Smith, who is the current chair, and a number of other board members that participated. And then Christine Miller, who's here tonight. She's the EBDA, or the Centrifuge executive director, and Garrett Pashusta, who's the chair of the board, participate. And we had 2 facilitators. We knew we might have some tough conversations in order to walk through and make sure we're having really great relationships and have good communication. It's really important to break down any barriers that may have existed. And so since November of last year, this group has been meeting in several different iterations, individually and together in small groups, to look at how we can help Centrifuge become the organization that they need to be, and looking at the other structures to serve the community. So we explored a number of organizational models, and ultimately landed on an agreement between the chamber and Centrifuge to merge their services together, to really break down some of those silos over the years and create some alignment, and to have a more efficient and coordinated set of services to provide to the community. So let's see here, there was a memo of understanding. It's an MOU that was signed on June 6th by both entities. And looking at moving together and looking at all the activities that needed to happen in order to make that merge a reality. If we look at the future ecosystem, we call it, of economic development, we look at that merged chamber as the benefits of that is, back to creating a kind of comprehensive and more relevant set of services and being more able to adjust those services and align those services to community and business needs. The city, I always tell people, economic development is everyone's business. And so everyone has a role in this, but these are some of the players and some of the roles that they will achieve. And so the city, this last year, we did hire an arts and economic development manager who's also here tonight, who's added some capacity to work with and expand our creative sector to help with some of the convening for our countywide and collaborative efforts. And again, we've always had a focus on downtown and historic preservation and infrastructure and tourism as well. The county continues our investment in the airport, really trying to set that up as a future industrial park and to really seed investments in that. They also work with the 0.09 funds and to make sure that we're making great strategic investments across the county, not just in the city of Ellensburg and other small cities. Central Washington University, since and during the process of developing the economic development strategic plan, has really stepped up in their role and has been called out and named and stood up to sign up for a number of activities within that plan. And they're working hard on, again, their business and community services and opened that element and trying to create services that help benefit the community and fill in some of the gaps in our economic development world. They've working on expanding their behavioral health. They're looking at their aviation programs. And also working with the CEDS, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, essentially, which will set our county, both Kittitas County and Yakima County, up for other larger investments as well. We've also had a discussion at the COG, that Conference of Governments, which has representatives from all our cities and our county on about how we can work together better, really, and looking at regional planning models and really working better together. So there's a lot of efforts underway to continue to collaborate and communicate and really use all of our resources to make a bigger impact, especially when it comes to our economic future. So back to the process of the board of the EBDA in May of this year actually had a resolution that they passed and authorized initiation of formal negotiations for the chamber regarding the merger. They've taken a number of other actions since that time to address asset issues and to work through those. And we will continue to work very closely with them in this process. Our city code, so chapter 1.62, talks about the dissolution. So this was language that was created in 1993 when we created the ordinance, or when we enacted the ordinance to establish the EBDA, and this is the dissolution. So sometimes we find challenges with the language of something written 30 years ago. So there are a few details that we need to work out with the dissolution process, mostly about the effective date of this dissolution and how to establish a transition of assets and when that's actually effective. So one of the things I'd like to talk about and back to, I guess I want to roll back just a second. And item C essentially calls out, so as the EBDA closes and dissolves, essentially assets that are not assigned elsewhere by the EBDA or the city, they come back to the city. So essentially we will have a responsibility, not just for those assets, but ongoing. This is an agency that was created by the city. So we will have a long-term responsibility for any of the assets that come back to us, or any of the public records and responsibilities beyond that too. So the asset disposition, I want to talk about, I talk about 4 different buckets of assets, essentially. We looked at small and attractive assets. And so those are things like office furniture, maybe things that are underneath or under $5,000 in value, paper, office supplies, things like that. Those are small and attractive assets. The EBDA board actually, they transferred those to the chamber, and and you'll see another agreement on the council agenda later tonight to actually just reaffirm some of the transfer and clean up some of the language with the small and attractive assets. Intellectual assets are those assets that are created with public dollars that are like the logo and brand, things that may not have tangible, they may have more intangible. And since the EBDA is actually merging with the chamber, using and continuing that brand with the chamber I think is a really important transition. And so those intellectual assets, as called out, would be transferred to the chamber as well to continue their use and effectiveness. And then real property, the airport incubator has been a discussion. So naturally, if the airport incubator is not surplused by EBDA or the city and transferred elsewhere, it would come back to the city. The airport incubator is on airport property. So there is a lease associated with the county for that property. There are some terms in that lease that say that the county has to provide permission to assign the lease to anyone else. And the county has long-term interest in developing their airport campus. And they know that they need more than just roads and property. They also need buildings on that property to make it viable. So the city has retained the liability for the assets through having centrifuged for the last 30 years, essentially, or since this inception, since 1999. But the county was also part of that agreement. And so the county has interest in that property. So one of the items you'll be looking at later on in your agenda addresses a transfer, but there's definitely interest in the county retaining that property and continuing to use that and maybe building off of that for the future. And they can speak to that later on. And then we'll talk about cash transactions. So again, we have the fund that when the business incubator was sold, the cash came back to the city. And so any of the cash assets after all of the liabilities are settled would come back to the city as well for use for economic development purposes. So closeout activities, we did put on your dais tonight. We have several running lists, and this is just a draft list. There are lots of moving parts and lots of activities to take care of in dissolving the EBDA as an organization and as an entity under the city. And so, so again, we'll talk about some of those things later on under other items. We do have an agreement again they have some active grants going on. And so as part of the agreement with the chamber, we've outlined who's doing what to make sure we're not leaving holes in those responsibilities. And then under liabilities, there's a lot of closeout for financial transactions, reporting to other agencies, the IRS, the auditor's office. And again, we're working very closely with the staff and hopefully we'll continue with the board working closely to close those items out following dissolution. So let's see here. I think that is the end of my my report. And I know we do have a number of folks here that are probably interested in testifying. And I just want to say, we hope this has been a very collaborative process. Our goal is to make sure that we're setting up our community with future structures that serve the community. Our hope is that the EBDA board members, that the chamber is creating space for them, and we hope they will continue. I know Mayor Rich Elliott isn't with us tonight. He's been at the table and has been a huge advocate for to continue the talent and the assets and the ideas that the EBDA board members bring to this community, and to make sure that we're transferring that. We really don't want to lose that opportunity in how we make decisions and the decisions that we make for our community and serve the community. So that's all I have, and I would be available for questions when appropriate.
Thank you for the report. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Does anyone from the public wish to make comments on this matter? If so, each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak? Mr. Graff?
Well, good evening, all. My name is Johnny Graff, and it's my pleasure to stand before you. I just want to take a moment to express my appreciation for this process and explain my role. As Heidi mentioned, you need some facilitation to make this process work smoothly, and my partner Phil Backlund and I were those two facilitators. And so we started this work in approximately November of 2023. We first did a series of discovery meetings with each of the 5 organizations to understand the relationships that had been established in the past and the challenges that those relationships may present as we move forth. In the beginnings of 2024, Phil and I then began to convene the task force. And I believe our first meeting was in March of 2024. That was the first time that all 5 organizations were behind the table. Or at the table rather. And one of the things that we worked on before that meeting occurred was that we knew that Centrifuge wanted to grow beyond the scope that they were contained by. The very talented board of directors for Centrifuge, and of course a very talented director, Christine Miller, were wanting to expand their opportunities in economic development. And as such, we found that the chamber may be a really appropriate place because the chamber already had a county-wide reach. And so that's what we focused on as far as how Centrifuge could move forth. The conversation, though, between the 5 organizations and the multitude of task force meetings was really the joy of the work, in that we saw relationships that had been strained in the past all of a sudden were becoming jovial, and there was quite a lot of levity in the room, which was not the case when we first started. So we saw a real shift in the way people interacted with one another, and it gives me tremendous hope for the economic growth in our county, and of course within the city of Ellensburg as a result of the work that we've done. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I think that highlights our role. Phil and I, of course, are looking forward to continuing to serve the task force. Of course, now it seems as though the task force has, or after this motion or this legislative bit is solved, it'll be a 4-member task force, because the Centrifuge will be working under the guise of the Chamber of Commerce and the expert leadership of Amy McGuffin. So I just want to give you a sense that this has been a real joy for Phil and I to be involved with, and we hope that we've been successful in helping these 5 organizations come forth in a way that was otherwise unexpected.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Mr. Backlund?
Good evening, Council. My name is Phil Backlund, 2418 North Wheaton Court in Ellensburg. I just want to add 2 things to what my partner Johnny said. He did a good job describing our role in the process, and the city manager did a great job describing what the complexity of this process and all the things that go into it. All I would like to add is I've been in Ellensburg since 1979, and I've seen the university and the various dimensions of county and city government not always get along well. And through this process, as Johnny pointed out, right now, I think the organizations are working together really effectively. So I'm really heartened by that. And I'm also really excited about the possibility of the really economic growth that can happen here through the task force. I think there's a lot of potential here. And I really urge that the whole process is expedited so that in the appropriate way, so that we can move forward. And then really it's going to, in a way, it's really going to help out the county. So it's been a joy, as Johnny said, to work in the process. And I wanted to have that role. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to comment? Is there anyone online who would like to comment? Seeing no one, that is way less testimony than I anticipated. Does the staff have anything to add?
I do not.
Council, do you have any questions of the staff or the public?
No.
Seeing none, the public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. The council may begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we conduct first reading of ordinance 4944, repealing ordinance 3895, codified in the city of Ellensburg City Code, ECC Chapter 162, dissolving the Ellensburg Business Development Authority, doing business as Centrifuge.
Second.
Motion and second to conduct first reading of ordinance 4944, which is the dissolution of the Ellensburg Business Development Authority or Centrifuge. Is there any discussion of the matter?
I was making a motion. I'll just thank everyone who's been involved. I know it's been a lot of work, and I haven't been here as long as Mr. Backlund, but I've also observed some of the same things along the way in the last 35 years or so. So I think this is great progress. So thank you, everyone.
Anyone else?
I would like to comment. I'm very excited about this process and looking forward to all the benefits that the county and the city and the other cities can realize from the economic development work that will happen out of this partnership.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed. That motion carries. And I'm sorry, Miss Mayor Elliott couldn't be here for this, but we will see everyone again in 2 weeks, right?
Second reading is October 7th, correct?
So it's not done yet. All right. We are at item 11A. This is an interlocal agreement between the city of Ellensburg, Kittitas County, and Central Washington University for economic development property exchanges, page 167.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lilquist and Council Heidi Behrens-Cernaway, City Manager. You have before you an interlocal agreement between the City of Ellensburg, Kittitas County, and Central Washington University for economic development property exchange. And this is somewhat related to your last item. And this is an agreement in concept. This actually frames a future property transfer. The interlocal does not result in those transfers themselves. And so I'm going to walk through, and the goal of this is to really look for long-term economic benefit for regional public interests and the community. So this item came to you because of timing, for one, and one of those items relates to the dissolution of the EBDA. As I mentioned in the last report, the county is very interested in owning the airport building. There's a process during dissolution to transfer that the building title, likely through a quitclaim deed, and it would require other actions by either Centrifuge or the city in order to actually make that transaction happen. And this happened at a time where there's a discussion about broader interests and to protect the city's interest. Again, the city, likely that asset would come to the city unless the county or the EBDA or the city actually creates another pathway for ownership. And to protect the city's interest, we've been talking about, is there a way to protect the city's interest through this in order to sort of secure some equity in property? So you have before you, again, the interlocal agreement. It frames three properties that would transfer title from one entity, one public entity to another. And again, this is agreement in concept. So I'm going to walk you through each of the properties. And then I know I have representatives from Central Washington University and also the county here tonight to talk about their individual interests as well. So the first property is the airport, the 3110 Airport Road property. Again, this is the one owned by the Ellensburg Business Development Authority. On the bottom right, this is a picture of the of the building and also just an aerial from above. Again, the revenue I spoke with earlier is about, I believe in 2023, the revenue was about $81,000 in tenant leases. There are some maintenance and operational improvements that need to happen, and there are certainly some maintenance costs that need to be taken care of as well, or that on an ongoing basis. Right now, there are 4 units and there are 3 tenants in those 4 units. One tenant has 2 units. The county lease is about $7,000 per year plus an escalator. And then it's part of the airport binding site plan. And under this interlocal agreement, conceptually, this would transfer from the EBDA to the county. Again, just want to clarify, this does not create that transaction. This creates a pathway for the transaction and protects the city's interest. The airport hangar is the second item, and this is a property that was under discussion with the county. It is owned by the county. It is on the Bowers Fields on the airport site. It is surplus to the county's needs, and Central Washington University is interested in expanding their aviation program. It's part of the airport binding site plan, and the idea under this agreement would be to transfer that facility from the county to Central Washington University for program use and expansion. And that would require additional actions by the county in order to transfer and by Central Washington University. The third property is property owned by Central Washington University. This is a parcel, and I'm going to use my cursor to outline it here. This is sort of the general view of the parcel. It's about 6.2 acres. It's raw land, again, owned by Central Washington University. It is surplus to the university's needs. And it would require the university to create a legal parcel and then transfer that from Central Washington to the university for affordable housing. And again, this would require additional action. And how this protects the city's interests. Again, this agreement is in concept. Additional actions would have to be taken. There's a timeliness to the dissolution of the EBDA, and there's an efficiency for a direct transfer to the county of the first property. And so that's why the timing of this interlocal agreement coming before you is very important. There are agreements, interlocal agreements like this in concept that happen from time to time. They don't have all the details, and and as the issues are refined or each of the activities are refined, they would require additional action. So this is something that's fairly common among agencies. So let's see here. So the motion suggested by staff is to move to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement between the city and the county and Central Washington University. My understanding is the county has this on their agenda for this week or tomorrow morning. And Central, I believe in concept, the trustees have approved this agreement as well. So before I transfer it back, I appreciate an opportunity to entertain Central Washington University. Andrew Morse, maybe we'll start with Andrew. Okay.
Good evening and good to be with you all. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of council and staff, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of this really important moment. The university is very engaged in meeting the needs, challenges, and opportunities of our community. And we see this mutual transaction as a really important step in that direction. The university has a vision to expand and modernize our aviation program to meet the needs of the aviation workforce. And key to that is having a world-class, highly desirable facility to do teaching and learning, to have office space for our talented faculty and staff who deliver the program, and really importantly, create space to also have innovation. The future of Central's footprint in the aviation industry also includes the work of business and community services, which City Manager Cernaway talked about earlier this evening. And that's thinking about life cycle innovation. There are innovations happening around parts development that support the aviation industry directly, that face globalization challenges, that face disappearance because of an aging and non-adapting workforce at the scale of the demand of those parts. We have a need for creating managers of technology that directly support the aviation workforce and industry. And of course, we want to fortify, grow, further expand the pilot training program that we have that's so important to our institution. And so I just really want to echo our support for moving in this direction and appreciate your time and consideration, and happy to take any questions that you might have.
Let's finish up with public comment, and then is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I believe we have Commissioner Wright with us tonight.
I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but
Mayor Pro Tem Lilquist and council members, thank you for the opportunity tonight. I'm Corey Wright, Kittitas County Commissioner, District 1. I am pleased that we are at a point in our relationship, not only with the city, but with the university as well, that we seem to maybe be looking at the zero-sum mindset in the rearview mirror. This, when on paper, from a comparison standpoint, each party could probably say that they're getting the worst part of the deal. But in reality, by putting these components together, we raise all boats. The university obtains their key structure at this point out there in order to act as an anchor to expand their offerings and ultimately expand the economic offerings of the airport, which in turn benefits the city. It wasn't too long ago that I was trading dueling op-eds with the president of the university regarding the airport, and I can say nothing but effusive praise for the work of Dr. Wolpart and Andrew to change what has been a very contentious relationship into one of mutual positive benefit. In relation to that, the opportunity to trade, which while it was listed as surplus to county needs, it is always a critical part to have a revenue generator at the airport, and the hangar served as that. But by transposing that hangar with the EBDA building, that revenue source for the ultimate maintenance and upkeep of the airport will continue to exist. And by the acquisition of the land, which, as we all know, this university never parts with dirt. So to have the university act, I think, in such an innovative and frankly untraditional manner says a lot about the spirit of partnership that now exists at an institution that for quite a long time for many of us was over there behind the trees, and they did their thing and we did ours. But that is no longer. By them offering this land for the city's use to solve a very critical problem of affordable housing, I think ultimately underscores the very public benefit that this partnership has to offer. We all take something out of this that ultimately will gain much for the public good. So I appreciate your consideration of this. Thank you for your own spirit of partnership in this to the university. And I believe we can do much bigger things the more we find results and product out of the work we do today. Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Mr. Kelleher.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Pat Kelleher, 6530 Wilson Creek Road. I actually support what's listed in this thing. The thing is, this is not the vehicle, and the statement of the manager that this is just a guidance document isn't correct. The agreement, section 11, this agreement contains all terms and conditions agreed on by the parties. All items incorporated herein by reference are attached. No other understandings, oral or otherwise, regarding the subject matter of this agreement shall be deemed to exist or bind any of the parties hereto. So all the statements earlier don't exist, or else it would be attached. So all you have is the 24 corners of a 6-page document. 12 of those corners are signature pages. So now you're down to 3 pages. And what you have in front of you is a gifting document. Public entities declaring surplus and gifting that surplus. Amen. Give me some of that birthday cake. I want you to give some stuff to me because there's nothing in this document that holds anybody responsible to complete the transactions. And once you sign this, you're in because haste is at essence here. Once it's signed, you're obligated. So once you sign it, you got a gift, a building that you don't even own yet, according to the earlier public testimony, of which I didn't know. The 6.2 acres, it doesn't even exist. There's no addendum that describes it. That's a nice picture that was put up there. Yeah, that's 18th and Helena. It's not a 6.8 parcel. Many of you have gone to closing. You had the legal description when you signed. This document is the classic napkin done at a bar. Okay, yeah, maybe Microsoft was mapped out like that. Maybe, Apple was mapped out like that. But those weren't the documents going forward, and you do not have the documents to complete this transaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone online who would like to speak? Seeing no one. Council, do you have questions for the staff or public?
Well,
ahead.
I was going to say, related to the comment, I guess I would ask the attorney for the opinion on the significance of the terms and item 11, the terms and conditions, all items. I mean, it's literal, all items incorporated.
Yeah, you have to look at the document as a whole. And in section 2, the responsibilities of parties are set out there for future action to take place. That's included within the 4 corners of the document as well.
And it also says to the point the parcel is approximately 6.2 acres. There's no legal description required for this level of.
No, that all take place
definition.
at the time of transference. There'll probably be a purchase, an exchange agreement that'll have the legal descriptions for all the transfers that are involved here.
And, I was going to say, related to that, the sequencing of building ownership transactions there's a deliberate sequence required here, right? For all 3 parties to interact, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the property, buildings.
And the exchange.
Exactly.
So I'm picturing us all, everyone sitting in the same room at the same time signing the quitclaim deed.
Well, it'll be with an escrow company and not all at the same time though.
Okay. But the legal descriptions and all of that come before all of that happens. So it's
right. As there will be the steps that have to be taken is the properties will have to be declared surplus first by each of the respective agencies, and then the agreements will have to be part of that, and then the agreements will set out the legal descriptions as well. And once that's done, it can go into escrow once there's the exchange agreements themselves. This is an agreement to basically create the process by which the properties will be exchanged.
And just for clarification, declaring surplus does not initiate any transfers of any kind. It's just, we do that way before any transfer occurs.
Yes, the property first has to be declared surplus. In some cases, I mean, the city process allows for us to sometimes declare both surplus and attach a purchase and sale agreement. That probably isn't going to happen in this case. It'll look a little bit different. This will be the EBDA's property to declare as surplus before the dissolution is effective, because they are currently the owner of the property. That will allow the transfer directly to the county once that's accomplished.
I had one other minor question. So this is extremely insignificant, but I have to mention it because if I don't, I'll lose my airport planner card forever. So there are two typos in the agreement. They're just misspellings. The question is, do we need to note those? Can we correct those?
If there's Scrivener's errors, they could just be.
I'll just
corrected.
point them out and you can deal with them. So, hangar is misspelled. This is my Airport 101 class that I teach to students and explain that a hangar with an E is what you hang a coat on. A hangar with an A is what an airplane goes in. So I know that's minor. That's item 2. That's the 8th whereas, and then minus 2B, or sorry, under item responsibilities, item 2B. It also appears in staff report twice, but I think that's not relevant. So it's a common mistake. I just had to mention it. Thank you.
Is there any other comments? Or questions? Sorry. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement between the city of Ellensburg, Kittitas County, and Central Washington University for economic development, real property exchanges, and authorize the city manager to take necessary actions to complete property transfers and approve the necessary budget adjustments.
I'll second.
Motion and second to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement between City of Ellensburg, Kittitas County, and Central Washington University for economic development, real property exchanges, and authorize the city manager to take necessary actions to complete property transfers and approve the necessary budget adjustments. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor Pro Tem, just FYI that I'll be abstaining from the vote due to my role with the university.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor?
I will go
Aye.
quick.
Okay.
I think a lot of this makes a lot of sense. My comment is really more just my fellow council members. When we get this 6.2 acres, to me, it's a gift towards affordable housing, and I'd hate to see that location be used as the location of the sleep center. There's for a number of reasons. I think we've got a tremendous opportunity to fill a big hole that we have, that we all acknowledge. And so that's what I hope we use it for versus the sleep center. Its distance from resources, I was looking today, is 2-mile walk just to get to Safeway. And it's surrounded by residential. I've talked to a number of people in that neighborhood. They've expressed their concerns. There's no perfect location that, we can all acknowledge that, but let's look at this as a tremendous opportunity for the council and for the city to keep chipping away at that affordable housing crisis that we have. So that's just my 2 cents. I'll be voting yes on it.
For the record, I agree. I think all of the remaining sites are too far. And we need to be seeking other sites for the homeless shelter, but it is a great site for affordable housing.
It is. It is.
So now, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
To vote aye. Opposed? With 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. One more. This is item 11B. This is the agreement between the city and Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce relating to the disposition of the EBDA assets, grants, and services.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and council members, Heidi Barron-Sternaway, City Manager. And this is the third and final agreement that's related to the dissolution tonight on your agenda. This is an agreement between the city and the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce to sort of clean up and reaffirm transfers of small and attractive assets, again, which are those small items that you'll probably normally find in an office and are less than $5,000, and those would be transferred to the chamber. It's the intellectual properties, so the website and the social media accounts, the marketing materials, the logo, those branding assets transferred also for continued use in economic development in our county. And then the third is a disposition of grants. Centrifuge has a number of active grants right now, and most of those have been closed out. The city would be responsible for some reporting, but the majority of the active grants would actually be transferred to the Kittitas County Chamber, and we wanted those memorialized as far as who's doing what. And so a recommendation tonight is to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement and to transfer the EBDA assets as outlined in the agreement to complete the disposition activities.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak to this item? Ms. McGuffin.
Good evening, Amy McGuffin, President and CEO of Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak tonight. By focusing on our resources through one unified organization, we can provide a more efficient and impactful system for fostering economic development. This will not only support existing businesses, but also attract new investments, benefiting the local economy and broader region. I just really appreciate all the effort and the work and the relationships that have been built throughout this time. I didn't want to stand up earlier because I felt like I would be repeating myself. So I thought I would just come in and say, a lot of individuals have taken the opportunity for growth, both professionally and for the greater good. And so we just really appreciate this opportunity from the chamber to, reflect on a lot of the forward-thinking approach that has now come upon us. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone online? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Council, do you have any questions regarding this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement between the city of Ellensburg and Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce for transfer of Ellensburg Business Development Authority assets and services, and authorize the city manager to complete the necessary deposition activities.
Second.
Motion and second to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement between the city and the chamber and to transfer the EBDA assets and services and to complete the necessary disposition activities. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work over however many years this took to get to this point. And I am also hopeful for a bright future for the economic development of both Ellensburg and Kittitas County moving forward. Thank you. We are at the manager's report.
Since you haven't heard enough from me tonight, I will ask a couple of things. One, there's a fair amount of information written in the manager's report. I do have a letter that was on the dais requesting approval of the Mayor Pro Tem's signature on a letter of support for Hope Source for the matching fund for WashDOT consolidated grant programs. And this is for their dial-a-ride programs and Kittitas County Connector Bus. I'm asking for a motion to approve.
Motion to authorize mayor to sign the reference letter.
Motion and second to authorize the Mayor Pro Tem to sign the matching funds request from Hope Source. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And to vote aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Just a couple things to highlight on the manager's report. Just a reminder that the waste management Fall Cleanup Days is coming up the first week in October. So folks, if you have waste management services, you should be receiving a postcard in the mail that provides you a free dump. If folks know someone or themselves have difficulty getting to the location, they can call us here. Folks who are seniors or disabled will arrange for a pickup of trash. And so that is available. Also, if for some reason you didn't get a card, you can call our Public Works counter and we'll get you set up with one. There is another flyer, 2 flyers in your packet tonight. One is a reminder of the Unity Park grand opening, and that is October 5th. And so music starts at 12:30. Community is invited. Your role as council members will be to show up and have fun. I think we have just a very short speaking engagement for the mayor, and our goal is to really help celebrate that day. So I hope you all can be there, and we'll be doing a ribbon cutting. So it'll be a great photo op as well. And then another urban flooding open house. The city has been working on what we call an FCAP grant, and it's a flood control account looking at mapping our stormwater and sort of remapping our city. And so an opportunity for folks to share their concerns about flooding within the city. And then we have a survey that's active as well in order to talk about those and share information if you can't make it as well. So that is on, I believe, the 26th of September. And again, more information in your packet. We did launch the HERE grant, and this is the home electrification program, and our staff have been insanely busy with calls and emails and getting information out to folks. And again, we have about $4 million and less than a year to spend it. And so, and this is up to $30,000 essentially of improvements in for small businesses and also for low income and moderate income households. And so applications are online, and there's a link in your packet. One schedule change I have for council tonight, and I have a question for Josh. Are you able to make the tour on the 25th? I forgot to ask you prior to. We're looking at doing a special meeting, a tour of Fish and Apoyo to explore some of the services that folks that provide. It was Wednesday, the 25th, we were looking at.
What was the time again?
About 4:15. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we will schedule a special meeting and that'll be September 25th and we'll start at Fish. We'll do a short tour there and then we'll go to Apoyo. And so we'll make arrangements. We will publish that as a special meeting.
So Fish at the airport, not open
Fish
table.
at the airport, correct. All right. And then I would recommend that we cancel our study session on October 3rd. That will be a replacement meeting for the studies. Excuse me, October 7th. Thank you. And so
Do we need a motion to do that?
That's not part of the code. Those are just,
Right.
council voted on that previously.
okay.
So I don't get to.
Can I draw attention just for a quick minute to item number 9, the homelessness survey? I'm a member of the committee that's put that together and is trying to get as many people in Ellisburg to participate. It's a short survey, 5 or 6 questions, asking for your opinion on what homelessness and homeless services need to look like in the future. And that input will be used to shape our 5-year plan that will be approved by the county, and that will get us on our way for the next 5 years. I want to say that the committee's goal was to get 500 surveys, and a week ago we had like 390 something. So, or no, it was 400. It was a little over 400. So if you haven't filled it out yet, please go to the website and complete that information. It would be nice if we can get 500, we'll have a statistically significant sample.
Thank you.
And I think that's all for my report.
And just for the record, I will be away for the Fish tour.
Correct. So again, we will do meeting notices for the special meeting on the 25th, and we will do the cancellation for the study session on the 7th.
Thanks. Okay, so council member reports. Let's begin with Mr. Thompson.
Pretty light. We had a couple of my meetings were moved, like the landmarks was moved to October. Was at Parks though, where we did review of grant applications, which I think went really well. I think the commission made some really good decisions on who to support, and I think that comes up for a vote next meeting. Is that correct for Parks? Grants?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, so we'll see that next time. But basically supporting the cross-country skiing at Rotary, and then also continuing to support pickleball as they continue to grow that. So some good stuff there. That's it.
Steer I-90 met last week. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, there's still conversation going on about I-90 and the updates that will be coming over the next couple of years, but also we were talking about the legislative sessions and quite frankly, everything that is kind of going to be up in the air until the November 4th ballot. So that was a good portion of our conversation, along with what happens during the legislative session in Q1 of 2025 to ratify laws and whatnot, and some of these things that may pass in November. My Affordable Housing Commission is tomorrow meeting. That's tomorrow evening, and then have no updates from Law and Justice nor from Kittitas County Solid Waste.
Okay, Mr. Miller.
Nothing to report over the last couple of weeks. Arts Commission's getting busy. Friday, we're meeting our selection committee for the Unity Park Art. We've got 3 artists coming in and presenting, and hopefully we'll be able to. This can be hard, but I think we're excited to see what we're offered. And then I just saw pop up. Kelly sent out the Arts Commission grant program. Those, I can't remember the total number. It was a fairly substantial number of applications. So that's another ongoing process, not unlike the council funded grant programs. So we'll be busy a little bit here. Go ahead. Thanks.
Councilmember Hoodlow.
Yes, I attended the Happy Face
Feet.
Happy feet.
Happy Feet.
Happy faces too.
Yes, not face. There were a lot of happy faces there. Happy Feet Academy open house, a new daycare center just opened, and it was a nice event. It's a beautiful facility, and they were all very excited. It was on Friday before classes started on Monday, and so I'm sure that's going really well. We had our first DEIB cabinet of the AWC. We had our first cabinet meeting earlier in September. We kind of took the summer off after the conference in June, so we're back in the swing on that one. The DEI Commission canceled their meeting this month because we had a retreat 3 days after the meeting, and we didn't really have any business. So. But that retreat was Friday. We had a really good discussion. It was led by someone from CWU. And we're looking forward to building on some of the things that we brought out of that meeting. And then COG will be meeting Wednesday night this week. So I'll be attending that meeting.
I'm like, no, I'm just an open book. So I don't have anything to report because I really dropped the ball this month. So, but I did get caught up a little bit. The lodging tax, all the applications are due by the 20th. So we will be having a lot to do in the next month or so, getting all of that caught up to speed. And then unfortunately, I have to ask for an excused absence for our next meeting on the 7th.
So move. Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to authorize an excused absence for Councilmember Boshaw for October 3rd.
7th, our next meeting, right?
The meeting is the third, right?
The third.
Fifth.
It's the seventh.
Seventh.
I messed up the first time.
Okay. I thought I'd heard third. Okay,
Seven.
it was September 3rd, right? So October 7th.
September 3rd.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
I
Thank
do
you.
vote aye. Opposed. Motion carries. So I attended the audit exit, and again, the audit team from the state, had high praise for our city staff. And we had a clean audit. There was no findings or management letters. And Holly Conti reminded us that Ellensburg has had a clean audit for the past 10 years, and that's under the directorship of Jerica Pasco. So we can all thank Jerica for keeping our books in order, because that is a difficult job with all of the rules that come along with it. The Airport Advisory Committee, we had a verbal report from the consultant JUB on the Bowers Business Park Economic Development Plan. That draft is due in September, and there are there will be some discussions with the city staff regarding utilities that come out of that that report. On Saturday morning, I welcomed the State Association of Manufactured Homeowners to their meeting down in the Rosewood Community Hall. And those folks have a unique situation in that they own their homes and lease the land that the homes sit on. And they've experienced rising rents and other conflicts with their landlords. So anyway, I invited them to really engage with our comp plan process, or just directly with the council. So we may be seeing more of them. They recently created a homeowners association and joined this state umbrella lobbying group, essentially. I also attended the Happy Feet grand opening, and that's a significant increase in the availability of childcare, which was much needed in this community. So we thank them, and it is a beautiful facility. The Community Grants Committee, to which we were appointed in our absence.
I was a little hesitant to ask for another absence here because
has scheduled a meeting. We're going to meet. It's like October 10th, though, so we're not going to be ready for the 7th.
That's right. And I was in error. I apologize, Councilmember Thompson. So we're going to package all of those grants together and we'll bring them to council together. And that likely, just given the timing of the Arts Commission, will likely be the first part of November, at maybe the earliest. So.
Okay. So Parks has done their work, but we have not. And I just want to say, I had to renew my library card, which gives me access to Libby, which I have been totally enjoying, this library of audiobooks that I can just download on my phone. And while I'm chopping vegetables and pulling weeds, I can listen to wonderful books. So if you haven't discovered that, I suggest you go get a library card and look for Libby. With that,
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did your library card expire? Did you lose it? What
it expires every year.
Oh, every year.
Yeah, you
Oh,
have to renew every year
Yeah.
in order to check things out.
Oh.
So I went to Libby to check something out and they said,
busted.
you can't do that until you
All right.
go down and renew.
Get on it. Thank you.
Yeah. So,